Welcome, everyone. I'm Jamie Flinchball, host of People Solve Problems, and today we have a special guest, Norbert Majerus. Norbert, how you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing great. Really excited to talk to you about the space of innovation and creativity. For a little introduction, sort of famous for a lot of the work you did at Goodyear. You wrote the book Lean Driven Innovation, and more recently Winning Innovation. In your retirement, which probably more like a pseudo retirement, is helping share knowledge as an author, college lecturer, and you spent a lot of time on process culture and, of course, innovation. Um, so look forward to having you share some of your perspectives and experiences with our audience. Innovation, creativity, these are really important words these days as people are trying to find new paths forward for their product line, their services, their strategy. So how do you think about the worlds of creativity and innovation? Are they separate? Do they go together? Do they intersect? How do those two words, they get thrown around a lot, but what does it all mean to you?
Yeah, it's in fact it's relatively easy. Creativity is about new ideas creating something. Now, once you create it, that if you want to market it and make money out of it, that's when you call it innovation. That's pretty much the way I look at it. Not every creativity leads to innovation. Only one idea out of many actually leads to making money. But you don't always make money if you look at like problem solving and bring some creativity in there. Money may not always be well, it's always the ultimate goal, but it may not always be your immediate goal. But you can always use the creativity. That I can tell you for sure. It in fact, I think many companies or organizations are stuck in their box, okay?
Hmm.
And that they just don't figure out how to think outside of that box. And we all, lean and operational excellence and everything, very popular in healthcare. But I think healthcare is stuck in that box right now. And I mean, if you cure the patient, your value stream dries up. Okay, so how do you solve that problem? I've seen many approaches there, and I'm not saying I have an approach, I have an idea or whatever, but to me, that's I think they explored the box pretty well. But it's about time to maybe think or find out a way to think outside the box. And many companies, people, whatever, are stuck on that. And hey, there is a way to do it. And I've spent my most of my career on that subject, and I'd be happy to share a few of those things with you. So.
Fantastic. So, I like the simple distinction between creativity and innovation. I work with a lot of student entrepreneurs, and a lot of people have ideas, but putting those ideas to work and turning them into real products or services is a whole different thing. So that makes sense. And to thinking outside the box. So let's sort of start at the beginning. You sort of have to recognize that you have a moment where you have to think outside the box because you're not going to spend all day every day outside the box. So how do you recognize the moment that where that's what you should be doing is thinking outside the box? How do you know that we've reached that point?
Well, I don't think that you look for that point. I mean, I think you should try to do it all the time. However, always a very good thinking there is if you always try to have some very creative solutions out there, but the risk of the creative solutions are probably much higher. So you may also have some conservative ones. But I would always encourage everybody when I was leading a problem-solving session or whatever to think both ways. I mean, try to think outside the box, but also make sure you have some more prudent approaches that you know will work for sure. Because, as I said, the risk once you go outside the box, the confidence level drops off very quickly. You go into new ground. You may always find yourself with some more prudent approaches. Now, everybody, well, okay, and this is not the first time you hear about this, but if you solve problems, you should always have many, many solutions. And I'm encouraging people to have a few creative ones amongst those many. So, and,
That's great. So one of the keys to that creativity is having multiple solutions, and multiple options on the table. As you, whether it's your own work or work with teams, how do you go about getting to that point? It's very easy to get pretty settled on a few set of solutions or a first set of solutions. How do you break past that? How do you get to the point where you really have multiple pathways, multiple solutions, high risk, low risk? How do you
Well,
get teams?
yeah, getting to multiple solutions is actually not that difficult. You can really coach your team towards that. Where it becomes difficult is to bring in the creativity, and that's, I think, where a lot of companies have a problem, and a lot of teams and a lot of people, because now we are talking about a cultural thing. And people, okay, you go to kindergarten, and all the people and all the kids are creative. They don't have any limitations yet. And then as you well, now you sit down, now you do this, now you do that. Okay, now we bring in the rules, and in school that still works relatively well. But if you guys start going to work for a company, now you bring in a lot of other things, and not only the company rules, but you bring in the company culture.
Mhm.
And to give you an example here, where I think uh, makes it very difficult in most companies. I almost got fired for a new idea that I had, and I was actually sitting in the office, and the vice president kind of made it very clear that he would not allow anything like that to ever happen on his shift. And fortunately, I got reassigned anyway. And but my successor at work tried everything possible to stop all that work as quickly as possible. And what we were talking about here is fear. And this leader had grew up in a culture where you just don't take any risk, okay? Because, and not so much even looking at the company, looking at their own career. I mean, I don't want to. My career is too short, and I'm here for 2 years in this position. Why would I take a risk like that? There is a small chance for it to succeed, and there's a bigger chance for it to fail, and I don't want it to be associated with that failure. So that company culture almost sets a very small box, and it makes sure that people stay inside that box. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, in order, if you want to get that thinking, bring that thinking in, I think, as I said, it's a cultural thing. Leaders have to understand, hey, give the people that freedom to think. And okay, if they fail once in a while, okay, that's just part of it, okay? And but the gain as a company or an organization is much bigger than those few cases where things may not work. So for me, that fear is a major obstacle to getting outside the box. Okay, we were taught the environment for me is also a big one. I went to Google once, and I was absolutely amazed. You walk through their offices, and every 50 steps the environment has completely changed. Okay,
Mhm.
the walls are painted differently, everything is set up differently, and they are actually encouraged to go out and their bikes sitting around. They even have a conference bike they showed us there and so on. And then I contrasted that where I worked. We had just built a completely new building, and we used to be in a renovated factory building where you had brick walls and everything, and it was just there was a lot of you could see the sky, by the way, in the atrium and things like, even though it leaked all the time, but that's a different story. But it got all changed where every piece of the whole building, the whole corporation, everything was white, everything was the same, and you're not allowed to put anything on the walls. Okay,
Yep.
uh, okay, so it pays off to have a little bit of a more stimulating environment, because that's how you support your culture. And the other thing that with the creativity that I always had a struggle with, it's nobody no the problems today are so complex and so complicated.
Hmm.
You cannot stay within one simple focus. I mean, your own box, you really have to collaborate with many other folks who bring in a different perspective that is absolutely needed to solve your problem. And for me, a huge big struggle was to create that collaboration, to create that culture where not everybody is educated to work against each other, but where they are actually trying to work together and help each other.
Hmm.
And especially so to me, that widens the box enormously. That brings in all kind of new thinking, all kind of new ideas. And but there again, the culture in many companies, it's like, well, this is my department, this is my function. I don't. This is all I get. It's anything expected of me is within this box, and that attitude often does not solve the problem.
Yeah.
And then another, well, this is the last one I throw at you here, is for me, it's the education. If you're used to work within that box, within that environment, there's no need to educate people in anything else than doing exactly that. But if you want the more thinking, more fresh thinking, more creative thinking, it really helps to educate your folks in that respect. And I think that education is important, because what we are talking about here grows from the bottom up.
Right.
You won't have leaders who they really have other stuff. They encourage the innovation. They don't enforce it, or they don't bring it in. But if you want it to come in from the bottom up, as it should be, it helps to educate the people. And there are many good programs out there, and I think it's worth spending a little bit of effort in that respect from time to time. So that's kind of throwing out just a couple of things here for that I learned in my career, how to get outside of that box a little bit.
Yeah. No, I love those. I agree with all of them. I mean, even the education, my first job, I picked a rotational program that would show me six different jobs in a short period of time so I
Yeah,
could think more broadly. And I
very
chose it
good.
just for that. So long time ago, of course. I want to go back to collaboration. I always like to say problem solving is a contact team sport. You know, we want people coming together and with some conflict and to get that collaboration. So what's your advice on getting collaboration started? A lot of companies, aspire to collaboration. They aren't choosing to avoid it, but they struggle to make it work. So
Yeah,
how do you help make it
that's a
work?
very good one. That's a very good one. And I actually wrote about this in my second book, and it I had this exercise, a game, okay, and the people go in there with their mindset, and horribly fail at this game. And I played it at many, many different companies. I played it at different levels of the same company. And the way it works, you put people randomly on teams, and they have a task to solve five puzzles, not one puzzle, five puzzles, and they can only get them solved if they help each other. Now the mindset, hey, I'm gonna do this. I'm in this alone. People solve their own puzzle and then walk away from it. And I had leaders sitting there. They couldn't solve, their team could not solve the puzzles because they just wouldn't step down to the place where they understood, hey, I have to help people here. But the good thing about this game is they figure it out on their own. Very, very rarely it has happened that I had to break it up. The team figures it out. And even those people who think this is only about them solving their problem, they get it, okay? And to me, that was a very subtle way to show people who that more things, much more can be accomplished by helping other people and helping the team and so on than going their own route and fixing, getting their stuff done. And leaders have to learn that their job is to help the people who work for them. It's very difficult. That's one way of doing it. That it really points it out, but still, it's up to them to grasp it or not. But I'm always amazed how many people who grasp it that way. And that's, of course, one way of doing it. And there are companies who learn that that operational excellence, that's an important part of it. And they kind of get it, but kind of. But then the other very, very big one that I like to use to get people think differently about that is the behaviors come before the beliefs. And it took me a long time to understand that. I always thought you had to lecture and lecture and lecture and lecture. That doesn't work with leadership. Okay? Creating that environment or creating those little, I call them primers, where it becomes obvious that different behavior is needed, and then give them the hint to what these behaviors are, and then let them work on it themselves. For me, worked by far the best. And then the last one, I took our leadership at Goodyear out to many, many, many other companies, not to show them how to develop product. Okay, they knew that better than anybody else, but to show them that other companies maybe work on this a little bit differently.
Right.
And that helped an enormous amount. And the companies were right next door, by the way. We didn't have to go very far.
Right.
But that made a huge, big difference to see that somebody thinks differently and works differently and has great results by doing that. So those, again, it all boils down to lecturing doesn't work, but to kind of get the change in behavior some more subtle way, and that made the whole difference. And I still remember the huddles, and we had these huddles, and absolutely fought with everybody else and pointed the finger at somebody else. And guess what? 6 months later, the same team is sitting there and saying, "How can we help you?" And that's all the language that was used. When there was a problem, everybody asked, "How can I help you with this?" And
Yeah.
that happens within 6 months, believe it or not. And
Mhm.
I'm still amazed about it myself.
Those are great strategies. Sort of a last question I have for you. I want you to imagine you're talking to a manager, a sort of junior director, or somebody that wants to get moving in this direction, but they don't have the power to change the company culture, and they don't want to end up like you did in the VP's office, worried about whether you're going to get fired. What's your advice to someone in that kind of a role? How do they get started moving down this path, even if they don't have control over all of those levers?
Yeah, that is a very, very difficult one. And to be quite honest, if that person never gets any support, I think that person will get very, very, very frustrated. And that is one reason why so many of these folks change jobs
Right.
or change companies so quickly. I still believe that somehow everybody should try to find somebody to help them. And once you found that's how I did it.
Yeah.
And once you find that the person or that whatever that would be, that makes a huge big difference, even in terms of advice, in terms of helping sell stuff, helping break down walls and so on and so on. But there's one that is even more important, I think. A lot of people go in there with okay, we'll do something. And I was at a huge big company here recently, and they had several hundred people work on continuous improvement. And all they did is tiny little projects that you will never see their contribution to anything. And what is very important for anybody, find something big first.
Hmm.
Find something big. If you solve this problem, okay, everybody will come to you and ask, how did you do it? Can you help me? And that is, in fact, I was going to tell their leader that, but then the leader didn't show up for the dinner that we had. So unfortunately, I didn't get my message through. But so, okay, maybe people will listen here and listen, and they get it through here. Find something big first, or significant. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
big, significant. Big problems are sometimes just as easy to solve than small problems.
Yep.
Find something that will make a difference and get a little help to do it, to get it done, and then brag about it, okay? And have people come to you, say, how did you do this? Can you tell me? Can you teach me? I think that to me, again, it's a subtle way,
Yep.
but you say it yourself. People solve problems, okay? And people, this is all about people. And those are those subtle ways I found work much better than anything else. So my little tricks that I learned over many years.
It's a great strategy that anybody can to make an effort at. So I appreciate you sharing that and sharing your experiences with our audience. So Norbert, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Well, and thank you for letting me share that. That's what you do in retirement, by the way.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.